Hello. Thought I would share a video with you today. I haven't done one lately with a project in mind. I got my book or my box of goodies from Candy Rosenberg for a Vintage Girl. I am one of their newest ambassadors and I'm so excited about that. I cannot wait. She has beautiful vintage chipboard, some freaking adorable stickers. Look at some of these stickers that I got. Oops, here we go. Some dress forms, which, you know, is kind of right up my alley, especially when I go antiquing. And then some of these pirate stickers for camping, glamping out if you're out there, and Alice in Wonderland. So I totally want to do some art journal pages actually with those. But today, I think I'm going to make a trio of ATC cards. I haven't done ATC cards in a while. And I'm going to use some of the goodies that I got in my ambassador box. So I don't really have an end project in mind, so you're going to be playing along with me as I'm playing along myself. For the base of my ATC cards, I actually just took the box that my, this USPS box that my product came in, and I cut it down into 3x3 squares. These are great for any of your mixed media projects. It's really thick, heavy cardboard, and it holds up really well to medium. So I thought I would use that for the base of my ATC cards. I know this isn't the normal ATC size, but you know what? I'm not one to normally follow directions anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out 3 of them. And I think what I'm going to do to cover each one of these, in our box we got some beautiful upholstery samples, and like how freaking awesome is this? These colors are like, again, right up my alley. All these kind of neutral colors. So I think what I'm going to do is cut these down and create the backgrounds, instant backgrounds on that, and then I'll embellish each one with some of the Vintage Girl chipboard. So the decision is which ones of these do I want to use, because they're all pretty awesome. I'm kind of liking this one, so we'll do that one. That one's really pretty too. Let's see here. I've got like a whole freaking box of these things. Actually, I would love to make a book cover. Maybe I'll make the cover of a book with this stuff with that one. I really, really love that one. So you might see a video for that. How cool is this one? That one's beautiful. Got a couple of these. It's a sateen fabric. That's kind of pretty. I'm trying to get them to kind of coordinate here, and I've got a couple that are similar of that. Actually, let's see here. No, I kind of like that one better. Let's see what else we have here. That is gorgeous. That would look really nice with those. Let's see. Oh my gosh, so many choices. Oh, maybe a dark brown as well. And then I think I just have to say, call it good, and we'll do that. So I just need 3 of them actually. So let me put these up off my space. Let's see. I think I like maybe one of these. I want different designs, and I need enough to cover the front and the back, and I kind of like this one. So let's do these 3 here. All right. So in our boxes, A Vintage Girl is also sponsored by Beacon and Fabri-Tac. So this was actually the bottle I got in my box, but Fabri-Tac is already one of my go-to adhesives. So I have a bottle that's already open, so I'm going to use that one first. And this is fabulous. So when I do a lot of my bookmaking with fabrics, I love it because it really doesn't bleed through behind the fabric. And to be honest with you, I pull it out with my paper as well because it holds really well. So it is actually my adhesive of choice. So all I'm going to do is, I don't know if that backing will come off, and you know what, we might just leave it. I'm going to go ahead and cut these down to size. And we also got, and it's so funny because we got these scissors in our box too. So these ones are brand spanking new, but it's actually the same scissors that I use all the time. So here's my scissors, totally gunked up and used. So I'm going to use those first and keep these when those ones are completely unusable. But it's Fiskars titanium. I actually have a couple of these that I use. So let me go ahead and cut these down. And you can see they don't cut fabric too well because I use them for absolutely everything. I cut things I probably shouldn't cut for scissors, and I know from my sewing days you want scissors just for fabric because they don't tend to cut, but I'm too lazy for that anymore. So my scissors are, I mean, they cut wire. I've got glue all over them. Kind of whatever's on my desk, my scissors get used for that. So we'll keep this as a perfect scrap to be used for something else. Let's go ahead and cut. So I'm cutting 2 of each because I'm going to cover the front. Actually, it's going to cover the front and the back, but maybe I'll make a book out of these. I don't know. Well, let me just cut them just in case. I'm going to cut around this backing just so it is thin. The fabric's thin, so that's why I'm kind of cutting around here so it's not bumpy on the cardboard. Maybe I should have used the new scissors. It may have cut it easier. Well, this one I'm going to have some of that paper backing. And that's okay. Okay. Now we have all of our fabric pieces. So all I'm going to do is glue these down, and I think I'm going to do it. So if this fabric was see-through or very thin, when you put it on the white, it would probably be brighter than it would be on the back. So I'm going to do that just so the colors are kind of true to how they are. I'm going to put it on the white side. And just apply your glue to your cardboard. And just make sure I go up to the edges because I want to make sure those edges are really down. And just rub it out. You could probably get a brayer if you wanted just to make sure you're smoothing it out. You could also take an old card and just really smooth that out. And then I'm going to trim up so you can see how it goes off the edges. I'm going to trim that up here once this glue dries. So let's go ahead and do this next one. So you can see how awesome this glue is. You don't see any bleed through of that glue at all. Actually, it is. That doesn't normally happen, but I do see a little bit of that, but it will be covered up, so I'm okay with that. And maybe it got too thick. You don't really have to use, like maybe it was that glob of glue that I put on there, because I don't usually put it on very thick. And that could have been what it was caused by. So this will be the test, if it, because this is the thinnest. So we'll see if it does bleed through on this, which it probably will a little. Yeah, it did. Not very much. Okay. Alright, so we will set these aside and let them dry. So it did a little bit, you can see here, but not that much, and that was really thin fabric. Alright, so we'll let those dry. Then we've got to decide what we're going to embellish these with. So I have some of the amazing Vintage Girl chipboard here. So let's see what we got here. I really like this sheet. It's got some pretty awesome chipboard on it. Maybe put some words. How awesome is that sheet? I think I definitely will put some words on it. I have one that I had used before, so I will probably use that sheet first. And these will be for another project. I think maybe on the cover of a journal. How beautiful would that be? Or on a big canvas piece. And these are just some dress forms, which if you saw the big book that I made previously for Candy, I use these on my project, and they're really, really fun to use. But I think for my ATC cards, I'm going to limit it to this sheet. So then, let's see here. What do we want to use? I kind of like this telephone. Take this piece out. And, oh my goodness. Probably should be doing this with the craft knife, not my scissors, because I'm going to end up cutting it. So that was in there good. Maybe these scissors. We'll do those. And how about this lock and key? I like that too. Okay. So these will be the embellishments I will use. And we'll figure out the words later. Candy also sent us a wonderful bag of ribbons and trim, so I might use some of those. And I'm a lover of all things with buttons, so I definitely would like to use these somehow on our pages. So then I've got to decide how I want to embellish these chipboard pieces. And I think with this one, I'm going to attach like some chain or something to have the key kind of hanging off to the side. But let's see here. I told you guys were going to be creating with me because I really didn't know what I was going to be doing here. Yeah, I like that hanging off. How about we just paint these up? Candy sent some Deco Art paints and they actually match this perfectly. These are bright, but no worries because I will age them. I have a flat metallic paint that she also sent, so I'll show you how we can age up these chipboard pieces. So let's go ahead and give these all a coat of gesso while these are still drying. So let's do this and get my gloves on. And because these are so intricate, I'm actually not even going to get a paintbrush. I'm just going to do this all with my fingers. I'm just going to take the gesso and move it around on the chipboard. It's okay if it's not smooth. Adds to the vintage look that we're going to go for here. So there's first piece. Let's do our little key. And since this is going to be dangling and you might be able to see the back, I'm going to go ahead and cover the front and the back of it with gesso. These pieces that are going to be laying flat, I really don't need to cover with gesso on both sides. It's kind of out of habit when I do that because on my assemblage pieces and stuff that I use my chipboard, they are dimensional, so I tend to cover the fronts and the backs. I try not to forget about that because nothing's worse than just an ugly back. And with these ATC cards, it is cardboard, so I don't know if I'm going to paint the backs or cover them with fabric because I do like completed projects. And you don't need to cover these with gesso. I like to because if I'm going to add a lot of medium to them, especially wet medium, it just lets the chipboard hold up better to that wet medium. And it just kind of puts a layer of protection on the chipboard. And you know what? Since this is really metal in nature, I think I might paint this to make it look like it's metal. And same with the scissors. Make it look like it's metal. The phone doesn't necessarily have to. So let me let these dry. And once they'll dry, I will be right back. Okay, so our pieces have dried. I also, off camera, went ahead and pulled the letters out for what I'm going to put on each one of the cards. So the telephone one says hello. The scissors say create. And the lock says my heart. So we'll go ahead and paint those up too, but I figured since I had everything out here drying, I might as well go ahead and do those. So I'm going to show a couple of my favorite ways to embellish chipboard pieces. And I've got some of these gorgeous Emerald Creek embossing powders. So I think what I'm going to do is, for the telephone, we're going to go ahead and use this one. It's Chunky Rust. It's a Seth Apter Emerald Crink embossing powder. So let me go ahead and move this to the side. We'll just move it up here out of the way. Let me grab this. Okay. So if you've never embossed before, embossing powder is fabulous. You can use it with stamps. You can put it right on here. If you use, let me grab my ink. Versamark ink, it's a clear watermark stamp pad, so it's really sticky and it stays wet for a while, which is what you want. You can use regular ink, you just have to make sure it stays wet long enough for the embossing powder to stick to the chipboard piece. So you can just stamp the chipboard piece and apply the embossing powder. I also use these a lot. It's by Ranger, it's an Emboss It Dabber. So if you had a piece like this, you could go ahead and dab the ink right on top of it and do the same sort of thing. So I think we'll use the dauber, and you just squeeze it and apply the embossing ink all over the chipboard piece. So I don't know if you can see, it's shiny where it's been applied. And I always just put this on a coffee filter so I can put the excess right back in my container from this. So I want to make sure I have plenty on here. So you can see I can pour that back into the container. And I might do a couple of layers with this because I want to make sure it's really thick. I'm just going to use this so I can hold it up and off of my surface and just heat it. And you want to heat it until it melts, and you can usually see it will change color when it has melted. Alright, so you don't want to touch this because it is very hot. And this one in particular, called Chunky Rust, it's almost fluffy, so you don't see it change that much, but it is subtle. I'm actually going to put another coat on, and I think I'm going to alter it with maybe this dirty sand, just to kind of grunge it up a little bit. So obviously you can't feel this, but it is soft. It's from that embossing powder. It's supposed to feel like rust. So let's go ahead and let's do another layer here. we'll just sprinkle a little bit of this on. And some more of this. And I know that there was some of that other embossing powder on there that is now in here. I'm okay with that. All right, we'll go ahead and melt this. Now, because I have this other embossing powder in here, you can see it turn more than the other. All right. Let that cool down for a minute. All right, so the next way I'm going to show you how you can embellish. Let me just get all this embossing powder away. Is with glitter. So let me show you this close up. There on the white, you can see it better. So you can see all that gorgeous detail. And you still get it on this chipboard. So when we, put it on our ATC card, doesn't that look awesome? All right, so that piece is done. All right, so for the scissors, we're going to put glitter. All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and do it on our little coffee filter. So another thing that we got in our kits was this Beacon Zip Dry Glue. So I'm going to go ahead and add, oops, I need to take the You just go ahead and add glue to your chipboard. And you want to just smooth it out so it's got a tacky surface to it. And it's helpful to have a baby wipe handy. And I'm going to go ahead and use this Distress glitter dust. You just sprinkle it all over the piece. So then we set that aside to dry, so you can see how glittery that is. I can already see there's areas that I'm going to have to go over again that I didn't put enough glue on, like right in here. So I'll let this dry and I'll add another layer of glue and another layer of glitter. But how fun is that? So that piece is going to sit over here to dry. And then the last chipboard piece, I'm going to go ahead and paint it. So that's our lock. Our lock and our key. So I'm going to paint it with this green paint because we've got kind of this brown, gold, green palette going on with our backgrounds. So I'm going to paint it with this green. And it does look very bright, but we're going to age this down. We're going to make it look old. So make sure you get the edges. And on the other chipboard pieces, we're going to use some wax, beeswax, colored beeswax, to finish those edges up. Just paint these both. You could do a key in a different color if you wanted, but since I have this out, I'm just going to go ahead and use it, and I'm going to go ahead and paint both sides of the key. Okay. We'll let all of those pieces dry. So let's finish off this piece. I'm going to use this artsy gold paste. It just happens to be what I have in my stash, but Finbar also has some really pretty paste that you can use in the same way. Viva Decor as well. So it's just a kind of a rub-on paste, and you just want to put it on your fingertip, and we're going to go over the edges of this. And I think the other thing I'm going to do, because there's some texture powder, if you have some on your fingertip and you just go over the top of the piece, it's going to pick up the highlights so you can see some of those gold highlights, and it just adds more texture and dimension. So even though you had a really flat chipboard piece to begin with, you can really add a lot of dimension to it. So that's what it looks like with that on there. And we'll do a similar thing to this once it's dry, but I'm not going to do it yet until it is dry. Alright, while all of these pieces are drying, let's work on our backgrounds. So what I'm going to do, I have a pair of pinking shears which I just bought, and I've been dying to use them. So it is on the outside. If you don't have pinking shears, you can go ahead and just trim up the edges so it's even along here. If you have any decorative scissors, that would work. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this up so we have this really fun edge. I'm trying to get it on the cardboard too. So it just adds a little something to the edges of your piece. So you can see I didn't get my glue down here, so I'll probably go back in and just make sure I get that tacked down before I start doing anything else. So let me cut all of these up. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to do on our backgrounds is I always like to add a bit of hand stitching. So I'm going to grab some gold metallic thread. And we're going to go ahead and just stitch a border around the outside of this. Make sure these are all, add a little bit of glue to this. And what I'm going to do, because this is fairly thick, I'm going to go ahead with an awl, I should say. Pre-poke my holes. I already had this gold thread on a needle. It's one of my favorite threads to use right now, so we'll start with that. So I'm just going to take an awl, and then I'm just going to pre-poke my holes here. Alright, I am back and I am ready to, I went ahead and added the gold thread to the outside of each piece. And I went ahead and added another layer of glitter to my scissors. So now let's go ahead and finish our lock and key. And it's stuck to my paper here. Usually the deli paper, it's fine, but this one isn't super waxy. I actually got it from my gel plate. So my chipboard pieces stick to it when I have paint. And I'm also going to paint up all of my letters here as well, because I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish those pieces off. But first, let's do the lock and key. So I'm going to take this Deco Art, it's a matte metallic, but you can use any dark paint, any black, brown, blue. You can use kind of anything that you have. And you want to just to put a little bit out on your palette. And then this acrylic, golden acrylic glazing liquid, you want to put it, mix it with it. And I usually do like this is almost empty, like double the glazing liquid to paint. And I'm just going to mix it up. You can mix it up with a brush or a palette knife. I just want to make sure it's really mixed in. So what the glazing liquid does is it thins out the paint and makes it more transparent, but it also gives you more work time. So I use this a lot to antique pieces. So you just want to go ahead and paint it on your piece. Make sure to get in all these little cracks. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and just wipe it off. So what this does too, if you have a piece, say you added crackle paste to a chipboard piece, when you did this, that the black would go all the way into all the cracks. So you can see the difference. It tones it down and it ages it up, makes it more grungy. So the other thing too, since these chipboard pieces have parts kind of engraved, so you can kind of see around where the keyhole is, you're going to start picking that up. So if you decided that, and I probably have a little too much glazing liquid in this, if you decide you rub too much of it off, no worries. Put some more on. You just want it more grunged up, which I kind of do. I want it to look like an old lock. So to me, that looks awesome. And just make sure you get your edges as well. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, so that piece is finished. I'm going to go ahead and do the key. And again, I'm going to do the front and back because I'm going to attach it to where it's kind of dangling. So with the green paint, you couldn't see the number 7 on there, but now you can see the number 7 because the black is going into where the chipboard was embossed. So it really picks up that detail. Alright, so I'm going to set that aside. So since I already have all of that mixed up, I'm just going to go ahead and paint my letters with this black, and then I'm going to come in after these are dry and add some gold shimmer spray mist to them. And that's another one of my favorite ways to embellish my chipboard. So you can see this one I need to pop out the center. It got stuck there. And this dries it. It would be kind of cool too, grungy. You could leave this paint like it is, and you could use some of that gold metallic paste if you wanted to, just around the edges, and that would be a really nice look as well. And it's kind of nice on the letters that they're not really dark black. It's like a translucent, transparent black. Alright, I will be back when I'm done with this and show you the next step. Thanks. Okay, we are back. So now we're going to start building up the background of each one of these and kind of build up the little display on each card. So in our boxes, Candy gave us some old vintage newspaper, which of course I love that. I love anything old paper wise. I have a huge selection of it. So I just grabbed some quilt batting that I had in my stash, and it was actually white, so it was this color white, so you can see there is a difference. So I just threw it in my leftover coffee from the morning, and it coffee stained it, and it smells like coffee. I rinsed it out, but it's that perfect shade that I want. So what I'm going to do is use some of the Fabri-Tac, and I'm just going to glue the paper to the top of this. And the thought is just to add a little bit of height to our backgrounds. I'm going to attach it that way. So then you can see when we put our chipboards, it creates a frame around the chipboard piece. So let's go ahead and glue all of these down. And again, you don't need a lot of this Fabri-Tac glue. A little bit goes a long way, and you're really just wanting to tack down that fabric. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some here to the back of our paper. And like I said, I use this Fabri-Tac for paper as well, but since it's attaching itself to the fabric, I figure, why not? So I cut the paper so just a little bit of that peeks out. I love when you have just that little snippet. It adds a lot of interest. To be honest with you though, let me cut off this edge so we have a little bit more on the side. I love it when you get little hints of the layers that are behind. So there's the first little vignette on the card. So I think I want the stripes going this way on here. So let's go ahead and put the next one down. My bottle is almost empty, so every time I sit it upright, I have to shake it back down. Before I place this on here, let me see if I need to trim up any of the edges just so it can peek out. I think I do. Just slightly. That's perfect. There's that one. I don't have it quite straight. Go. And then the last one. Maybe almost time to open up the other bottle. Getting down to the last little drips. And then also where I added this stitching, it really frames up. It's a subtle touch, but again, that's what I love about those small details. I get obsessed over them. Alright, sorry about that. My battery died on my camera. Alright, so we have our three pieces here, and you can see the little elevated, it's subtle, but it adds a huge thing. So then I have to kind of decide which ones do I want to put the chipboard pieces on color-wise. And I kind of like that offset of green on that one, and maybe the glitter. So you can see with that second coat of glitter, it completely covered it. And then I took some of the artsy wax, and I did put it on the edge just to kind of finish it off, and rolled it up on the kind of the outer edge. And so it looks great now. But I think I like it. I think I like the colorways on these three pieces. So then what I want to do, and I was thinking about this, I might actually do a little hanging perhaps. I don't know, I haven't decided yet where these three hang like that. That would be kind of nice to put into my studio. But then I also thought about, this was a piece of really wide ribbon that was in our packs about building something on the background. I like to do that when I make ATC cards, and then stitch this over, kind of fold it over, and inside of it can be how it's hung. If I decide not to hang them up together, so I can put like a stick or something kind of inside of that when I stitch it closed. And then just for some grounding, I always like to pull some color at the bottom of this. This was another ribbon that was in there. Again, from a layering perspective, just to have a little bit, and I will trim this off. Zoom in here a little bit so you can see this. So this will be peeking out underneath. And then what I thought about doing is take some of my beads. I just have a ton of beads in my stash. Take some O-rings and attach some beads here so they kind of dangle down. I always like that look as well. But then I thought about so many options. That's the loveliness about this, about adding some of these wonderful buttons to each piece, because I really love stitching buttons. And if I would have put buttons here and maybe not danglies, or maybe only danglies on some of them pieces, maybe this one, just because the chipboard piece, sorry, here, let me zoom back out. Maybe on this one, because the chipboard piece is less of this, so it needs maybe a little bit something more. So that's another option that I have. And then I have my words too that I've got to figure out how to put these down on each piece. So let's decide here what I'm going to do. So I am going to finish these off too, but while they are dry, let's kind of play around with this. So I can layer the chipboard on top of that. So that looks kind of nice with it saying hello. This one says create. So I can do something similar, maybe in the middle. Let's see here. No, let's do it in the lower third. And I'm going to have to, because this word's a little longer, crunch that up. This is just for placement. And this one for my heart. So obviously, might have to think about what I want to do for that one. So maybe when I place, here, let's switch this around here. When I place this on here, maybe heart can be down here. So it kind of goes off of it. I think I like that placement of those three pieces. All right, so let's get these letters sprayed so they can be drying, and then we'll start constructing these in the meantime. So So because I have kind of this gold theme going on, even though these are black, I'm going to spray them. Let me find my gold spray. All right, I'm going to use Marabou's gold spray. It stopped going out of this bottle, so I just put it in a mister, and hopefully it works. Doesn't come out perfect, but it covers it. So I'm going to go ahead and just liberally, I could paint this on as well. I don't feel like getting a paintbrush out. Let that dry while we start constructing the backgrounds of our pieces here. Okay. Let's do this one first. Alright, so we're going to want this. Even up the edge here so it's not showing. And this is all just a really simple process. I'm just cutting my pieces so they fit. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that little red piece down. Again, it's a small, subtle layer, but that's what creates, in my eyes, that's what creates this amazing interest on these pieces. And I'm going to use the natural edge, this kind of rolled edge. I could do the loose edge as well, but I kind of like that finished off edge of that piece. And then, so then the decision to be made is, are we just going to leave this like it is without a hanging piece, or do we want to fold this over and stitch that down? I would machine stitch that because if we're going to use it to hang, you really want it to be secure. So I think I will stitch these all down off camera and I'll be right back. Alright, so I have machine stitched the top of this down, and the thought behind this, and maybe it would be easier to do now, is to put a stick in the little pocket that I made, and that's how they will hang. So I think I'm going to do that now, but that went in pretty easy, so maybe not. So these are just some of the sticks that I have. You can get these at your craft store or in your backyard. I just wanted a bunch of the same size, so I got them at the craft store. So we will go ahead and glue these onto each background. But I'm thinking before I do that, I need to decide if I'm going to stitch on buttons, because I'd want to do that first before I glue that background, just because it would be easier to see. So we decided this was going to go on there. And I kind of really do like those buttons on there. So I think I may stitch those on first. And the question is, do I want them down here? Do I actually want them up here? Because that's on the edge of the cardboard. They'd probably be a little more secure there. Alright, so I'm going to get some embroidery floss because I think that's what I'm going to stitch these down with. Let me see if I have a needle here that actually has some on it. I do. I have a needle with black. That'll work. I'm going to stitch those down before I glue that background on, because that background too will kind of cover up that hot mess in the back of each one of these. But before I do that, I keep changing my mind. This is part of the issue of watching me create as I'm deciding. I may go ahead and cover the background with these because that really hides everything and it just cleans it off. It looks really nice on the background. So before I glue this on, I might go ahead and do that because this is what it looks like on the back. I've got all my tape and everything on the back here, and you can still kind of see through it with that. So I may go ahead and just add this to the back of that. So we'll decide. So let's go ahead and get these stitched on. So I've got 3 buttons here that I pulled out, and just because I'm a stickler for this detail. So you can see 2 of the buttons have 4 holes, and this one has 2. You could put them on any way you want, but because I'm pretty anal about that, I'm going to put the one with the 2 in the center, just because then it looks equal on the outside. Kind of crazy like that. So let's go ahead and probably need my awl to poke through the initial hole. Just make sure you don't poke your finger, which I do quite a lot. Alright, where did that hole go through? Alright, I'm going to stitch these buttons on this and I will be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and stitched the 3 buttons down, and then I also went ahead, like I was explaining, I glued the extra fabric piece onto the back just to finish it off, and then I went ahead and glued the lace to the back of it. I put my little stick in to hold it, and I glued the chipboard down. So I'm going to set this aside to let it dry really well, and then the last thing we'll do to finish this off is put our words on top of it. But this one is done other than the words, so I'm going to just set this one aside. So now let's work on the next piece. So that will be the scissors. So we're going to do a similar process. I'll go ahead and glue this to the back, and this will be here. So now we've got to decide, again, so when I do these trios, I like to make them similar but yet different. So I'm using, similar colors, similar material. So, this is the same, this is the same, this is the same, but yet they're different. But then that way it creates a cohesive look. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to glue this red piece down, and you can see on this one it really pops the whole piece just because of it's pulling the red in from this. But I need something else here. So I could do buttons. So again, remember we're putting the word create here. To make it a little different, I suppose I could stitch a button up here. Let's see what other buttons we have in here. I could use the same color button, which actually almost all the buttons I have in my stash are all this white cream, because you can always color them with alcohol ink, so it's kind of my go-to button. Let's see, we have a bigger one. I don't know if I like that big one. I have a gold. We could do, let's see, I've got a little white one here. Maybe a trio of buttons like that. That looks kind of nice, because again, the word will go here. I really like that. We'll go with that. So again, it's a similar element, so we've got buttons on both, but they're different. So we're going to go ahead and assemble it the same way. I'll go ahead now. I'm going to go through a lot of layers here for these ones, so I'm going to definitely have to have my awl to poke through the holes. But I'm going to go ahead and glue all of this down, stitch on my buttons, and glue my chipboard piece on, and kind of assemble everything, and I will be right back. Alright, so I've got everything glued down on my second piece here, and as I was gluing it down, it dawned on me I really didn't glue the other one right. Like, that looks much better on the back than how I had it, so I just cut another piece, so it's, you know, extra thick back there, but it looks much cleaner on the back than the lace. So this one is done. So now I've got to decide my last one here. So we're going to layer it just like we did with the others. Let me cut my ribbon in half here. So this is going to go underneath. This will go all the way underneath. I think I'm going to dangle that, but I've got to figure out if I'm just going to use string for it or chain. I've got to figure out how I want to do that, because I would like to dangle that from that piece. And remember, this one, we're going to have the word heart down here, so we really can't put any buttons, but I'd like to put some buttons on here. So then the question is where, and maybe it's just one button, or maybe it's two, maybe some little ones perhaps. There are some really teeny buttons here. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Maybe on the side like that. I kind of like just two little buttons on the side. We'll go with that. I'm not going to second guess everything. So just like before, I'm going to go ahead and do all this off camera. I'll go ahead and stitch these buttons down. I'll glue everything down. I'll decide how I'm going to handle the attachment of the key. So then I will be right back. Alright, so I've got everything glued down. I went ahead, I had these fun little like raffia wreaths in my stash. I thought that would be super fun to kind of hang it, so I just wrapped it around my stick on there, and that kind of holds the stick in as well. So here's all three pieces. This actually, I just went ahead and used a jump ring. It was kind of serendipitous because I had it sitting on my desk. I'm like, oh, that'd be perfect. Then I don't have to worry about any chain or anything. And it looks pretty nice, and you get that little movement with the key. And then here is this piece. So here are my letters with the gold, and that gold is pretty awesome, but I think I went a little too heavy with the gold. So I wanted it more kind of wanted the gold just to be shimmering, but I went a little too much. So I'm going to spray those with some black spray mist, just to kind of age them back down a little bit with some of that gold shining through. So I'll do that in a minute. And then when I come back, I'll go ahead off camera. I'll glue my words down on each piece, and then I'll be back to show you the finished projects. Alright, I am back, and my 3 ATC type projects are done. So there's the gold on here. I did black and it still wasn't kind of what I want, but I really liked the red, so I sprayed red on it, but it created some awesome depth of color. And then I just glued them on and I really like how that looks. So here's a close-up of this one so you can see the wonderful glitter, the spray mist, and it'll hang just like this. And here is a close-up of the telephone so you can see that yummy embossing powder. And again, the hello. And here is the lock and key with the little movable key. And that's just painted and aged with the glazing medium. And that's it. I'm really, really happy with how these turned out. I love the color palette. It's kind of right up my alley. This old, you know, vintage, muted, neutral type of colors. And I hope you enjoyed my project today. And if you're inspired, please tag me. I would love to be able to see what you've created with the Vintage Girl chipboard using some of the techniques I showed you today. So thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Thanks.